Mates, lend an ear.
Hear us now.
Captain Franz at the helm, so steer. Gather round the partnership's deck.
Schrepf's command.
Tales from the leaders of the partnership train. So we chant by the podcast glow. Through veritable seas to boxes flow. Dar, dive. Hoist the sail.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Partnership. I'm incredibly excited to talk today to Olga, who heads up partnerships at Monday.com for North America. And that's not Olga's first gig in partnerships. Like over the last, I think it's almost 10 years or longer, Olga's headed up partnerships at companies like Vonage, Cooper, WorkSpot, and several others, and her teams have generated between 50 and 80% of the company's revenue at these different companies, which is a pretty incredible stat. And so when I started talking to Olga, we just immediately settled on how can you generate revenue for partnerships as the topic for the show, because Olga is clearly the absolute expert. And I wanted to invite you in the audience. We have a 5-step framework today, which we're going to share, which I'm pretty excited about because it's very actionable. But if you do have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat as well, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. And I see we have Lincoln in the chat already, tuning in from the UK. Great to see you, Lincoln. And I agree. Let's go. So first question for you, Olga. Before we dive in, how did you get into partnerships? How did you get to lead teams which generate so much revenue for your companies?
Thanks so much for such a glowing introduction and for having me today. To be completely honest with you, getting into partnerships was completely by accident. I thought I'm going to enter the world of finance. I was in Chicago getting my MBA in finance and marketing, working for Morgan Stanley. Sounds like a very fancy job, but it was actually a biz dev job. I had a spreadsheet of Excel names, and I had to smile and dial and offered them retirement planning with Morgan Stanley. And then I think it was an article or a book I read that said, create your non-negotiables in a job. And I sat down and wrote 3. I still remember it. And it was, I wanted to come into work and have something to do that's different every day. I wanted to travel and meet people. And the third one was, I wanted to drive an impact on a company level. And I think the stats that you mentioned, driving anywhere from 0 to 50% of revenue or pipeline, or all the way to 80% of pipeline and revenue for the partnerships is definitely something I'm really proud of, and looking forward to do it Monday as well, as I'm 6 months in. So there's a huge opportunity at Monday.com, and I'm excited to share a little bit more tactical stuff with folks today.
Yeah, I love how you had this systematic approach of what do I want my ideal job to look like. I remember back in university, I was joking with my friends that the ideal job would be that you just hang out with your friends and make money while doing so. And somehow we described partnerships.
Yeah.
Somehow we accidentally described partnerships without knowing what it was, but it took me a couple more years to actually find it. But a lot of great partnerships leaders come from a sales background, which explains your acumen in generating revenue.
Yeah, sales background, business development. And I think for anyone who's joining us, there's no, silver bullet that you need to know as a background. I think everyone at some point took a chance on us and gave us an opportunity. I think don't be disheartened by the market today. I think even in 2014, 2013, when I was applying, I submitted over 300 applications before. Still remember Bridget, the recruiter from Apptus, called me and just said, do you want to be an alliance manager for Salesforce? And I'm like, I have no idea what those 3 words mean, but sure, let's give it a shot. Let's do it. And, it just takes a chance. I think it's all about a personality going. I think the attitude of going and figuring it out is really, really important, because partnerships encompasses so many different roles that kind of don't have all the answers, but as long as you have that personality to go find the answers, you're off to a good start.
Yeah. Awesome. And with that, let's look at some of the answers you've discovered over the last couple of years. In this 5-step framework, the first one we discussed is to identify buzzwords. So I guess at this point, you already have your partner and you already established that there is a shared value proposition, but how can you stay top of mind for their teams?
I think it's important to know that when you're developing a partnership, you have to be very, very specific of what you want to achieve. So I would say in the Salesforce ecosystem, Salesforce has so many products internally, so does everyone else, products, positioning that they need to know internally to position to their customers. So how do you make it relevant? You have to either plug a gap or help them add revenue, right? You have to plug a gap from a product perspective or identify ways for them to add dollar signs to their opportunities. And that's what I mean by buzzwords. So in the world of Monday, Monday.com, we've positioned ourselves as a work OS platform. And this year, because we have multi-product offering, it actually becomes easier from a partnerships perspective to say, when you hear project management, where you hear CRM, when you hear dev or service requirements, think of Monday. It was very, very similar in all the previous companies. I think the VP of sales I worked with before, Patricia Nolan, said, use big animal pictures and big words when you're presenting
Big
to the
animal
sales.
pictures?
Yeah, so if you think about, quote to cash, which was Apptus, put in dollar signs. What is quote to cash? That's CPQ, contract management. If you think of contact center from a Vonage perspective, I seem to pick companies that have 3 acronym words. Think CTI, think contact center. And then if you think of infrastructure and virtual desktops, think VDI. So those are, every company has their own go-to-market. And for you to be relevant when you're positioning yourself to a partner, you say, when your customer mentions X, Y, and Z. So let's say for Monday.com, it's project management tool, CRM, service, or dev, call us. We will help you with the opportunity. Keep it as simple as possible. That's step one.
Yeah, it's interesting because I work in live streaming, that's what our company's main business is. And in the creator economy, you also have to find your niche. Most people are these really diverse butterflies, and they have all kinds of different backgrounds and interests and want to talk about everything, but it's just not gonna work. And similarly, I guess a lot of CEOs say hey, you should send us every lead, but that's not very helpful because the sales rep at the partner side will probably have to think about all kinds of partners at the same time. And so it's really difficult to stay top of mind unless you own one specific niche inside of their brain. And where if somebody then says we need a project management tool or something like that, they'll immediately pull up Monday as the solution. And in all other scenarios, it might not come up, which you have to be fine with as well. You have to know who is your customer and who's not your customer.
100%. I think with your experience, how many times have you had a meeting with an executive that goes, let's go to present to this partner. We'll take an hour. We'll start with a demo for 40 minutes, and then we'll take Q&A and tell them to send us any ops. And the expectation for those meetings is the pipeline is just going to be there. The partner is just going to go drop everything and starts positioning our solution. Does that happen in reality? I think this is why we're talking about the 5 steps to get started, right? So that's the first misconception. The number of, every time I start in a company, I go meet with the VPs of sales, CROs, CEOs, and that's the talk track. I can guarantee you that 40-minute demo that they have in their mind that will wow any partner with your product. It works for SEs, it works for the technical folks, but when you're trying to position it to a salesperson within the partner organization, it will just go like this. So this is why buzzwords are super important to stay top of mind. So step 1 for anyone listening, let's start with the buzzwords of, if you had one word to represent your company for the partner, what would it be and what would you say?
Yeah. And I think when you install that, it probably will surface opportunities which people are working on right now, right? As you said, it's very unlikely that they'll get past opportunities or something like that. One hack which can work with buzzwords, from my experience, is using a tool like Gong, a sales intelligence tool which records meetings, and you just plug in the buzzword and you just see how many people have talked about it. But at that stage, a lot of these opportunities will probably be dead already, so it's more validation. I guess buzzwords is something you install now and then reap the rewards later. just by like making sure that sales reps have that on their mind when they have these new opportunities come up?
You bring up a really cool point. We used Gong. This is a plug for Gong. We're not sponsored by Gong, but this is a really fun.
Not sponsored, just fans.
Just friends, and definitely utilizing the best tools in the market. We actually used Gong for reverse. So many times customers come to us and say, we want your solution, but we already have a partner we're working with who's going to implement it. So we actually use it in reverse and said, we are looking for all the implementation partners our customers already work with so that we can bring them into the Monday.com's partner fold and expose them to the benefits, expose them to the channel program and the services that they can package. So I think we use it in reverse. But the same goes, we have Salesforce managers that we worked with before and Google partner managers. We would say, look up opportunities where, let's say, CTI was mentioned or CPQ was mentioned. And that's how they would position you into the seller, because the seller is taking notes, whether it's through Gong that they're capturing the call or in Salesforce. Those are the ways to uncover opportunities that are active today. So that's much quicker way to win to revenue, right? Than making sure that the partner's asking the customer, what do you use for CPQ? So that I would say is quicker way to revenue through buzzwords than continuous education.
Awesome. Yeah, it's all about quick way to revenue and quick wins. And yeah, Antonio, thanks for joining us today. Antonio agrees as well. Leveraging keywords with Gong is underrated, and I agree because it's often a tool which a sales team actually paid for already. So you as a partnership leader can just like leverage it and piggyback off of it rather than having to get your own budget for tools as well.
And as partner leaders, it's a great way to help your salespeople. You say, hey, you mentioned your customer's looking for this. I have a great partner that can fill that need, and they can do the demo, they can take over and help you win the business. So that's also a way to use the buzzwords to generate revenue and help your sales team close.
Yeah, 100%. Talking about helping the sales team close, step 2, provide customer business value examples. What kind of examples do you have in mind?
So I think about it this way. I'm in a meeting with a seller from a partner. I say, hey, Monday.com is a WorkOS platform. We solve your needs for CRM, dev, service, project management tool. Great. As you're introducing Monday to your customer, what can you say that will provide us with credibility? So in some cases, the best way to do that is provide real life customer examples with business value. As an example, the 2 business cases I like to present is public facing stories. So Motorola is a customer and they've seen 346% in ROI over 3 years with Monday.com. What that means is that we break it down into their cost reduction. So they report about $123,000 saved in administrative and reporting time. And those are just examples of what you can give to the sales team. The best bet you can have is that they can say Motorola is a customer of Monday and they saw over 300% in return on investment, right? So that's just making sure we provide them with buzzword followed by an example from a customer. Another one I like to use, it's always from a business impact perspective, is Telefonica in the UK are 30% more efficient in delivering their campaigns with Monday.com. So those are the ways to make it relevant. So not only your buzzword is identified, you have an example of a customer as a step 2.
Yeah. How do you make sure that these case studies are surfaced in the right moment? I feel like that's the hardest bit. Like we had like at some point a team whose whole job was just to make case studies for customers. And so we just had hundreds of them. But then it actually became quite difficult to figure out like which one to surface at the right time and which one is the most relevant to each customer.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think when you're presenting, you don't necessarily know the whole book of business. And most of the time the partners might have a very big variety of industries that they cover. So you can say, here's a few examples, but if you have a customer in a specific industry, you need an example in that industry, we'll send it over to you. So I think that's really important because people like to know what their competition is doing. And that's probably the best customer reference you can provide is something within their industry that is driving impact for an organization with your solution is probably the best way to go. But if you don't have it, get the best second option. Good logo, really good ROI results. Those would be my recommendations. But we also do something that we started doing this year with Monday.com's team is when we recommend a service partner, we actually send 2 slides to our salesperson for credibility purposes. So when we say there's a service partner that will do your integration and implementation or data migration for the customer, but we wanted to give you the credibility. Here's all the certifications that they have. Here's all the wins that they have with Monday, and here's the business impact they drove for Monday customers. That also, it's a bilateral. We're not only expecting our partners to bring us business, but we're also helping our partners with credibility to our customers where they're providing services. So I think that's really important, that it's not just a one-way partnership. You have to gather information about your partners as well with the customer business value.
Yeah, I like that because I assume most of the time when Monday would recommend a service partner, the assumption would just be like this person probably knows what they're doing. But then as a customer, you're still kind of like feel often like you would probably prefer it to be the company itself rather than a service partner. And so providing these 2 slides is like a really easy way of like making sure the customer actually feels good about that transition and making sure it's not like a weird, anxious low point, even if the partner is they're probably pretty good, but still it can feel like a very anxiety-inducing moment. Because that person was also staking their career on this probably succeeding.
100%. It's a bet, right? If you're betting on any solution, you're putting your name on the line as a customer. You always have to keep that in mind, is that no matter what the partners recommend, we're actually taking a bet on that customer's career. So for us, we really need to keep that top of mind as we're delivering a solution or pitching a solution or selling software or service. It's really about how to make that customer a champion, get them to win quick, and get them to the results that they were looking to drive. And that's the essence of what we do through connecting partners to helping customers. Partner leaders, I think, are at the heart of making that happen.
Yeah. And it's about showcasing that externally as well and making sure that everybody is aware of this. And that brings us to the step number 3, which is providing external facing validation for why your solution is the best. Case studies are a great way. Like, whatever options do you have for like providing that external facing validation?
I think it's Gartner, G2, ratings pages like G2. So as an example, when I was at Apptus, we used our Salesforce App Exchange rating. Same thing with NewVoiceMedia. Which is now part of Vonage. We were the highest rated solution for that specific contact center. For Monday.com, we use G2 because we're multi-product and all of our products are listed on G2, and G2 helps you compare other competitors. So it's not you telling the customer, the partner, that you're the greatest. It's an external facing resource that validates that. And so many of our customers I think in the last maybe 5-6 years, it's really gotten into the Gartner route and other validation sources to make that purchase decision. And I think people, even before they contact the organizations, they do a ton of research prior to that. So nowadays we're getting a very well-educated customer. So those external facing resources are key to validate your solution, even for people to find you, but also to compare and contrast you against the competition in the market.
Yeah, it's one of the first things we do when we buy software is go immediately to G2 and just check it out. Shout out to the G2 team. We had Christine Lee on a couple months back who talked about their partnerships team over there. From your experience, like, how do you incentivize your customers to give you reviews? Because from what I've seen a lot is that the people who give reviews are often the people who are the most upset. And so obviously that's probably not the people who you want to give reviews. You might ideally like catch those mistakes early and like turn them around so they're happy customers before they like publicly reference, like, create reviews. But what have you found works to generate that validation externally?
I think we've done multiple different campaigns in the past where we'd encourage reviews on App Exchange, where we'd encourage CSAT reviews. That's more for internal kind of review of our performance. We've given gift cards in the past for customers that have completed or did like a raffle. It depends, of course, on your company policies. So make sure to review that before you launch it. But I would say coming from a genuine place of saying we'd love to hear your feedback and we always want to focus on the customer experience really drives the engagement. It's making sure you're coming from an authentic, genuine place where you want to collect the feedback. And of course, the unhappy people are the loudest. But I think the way you prioritize and the way you come to solve an issue is what's going to drive their commitment. I think the best customers I've become friends with are the ones that actually had an issue. We got right on top of it. We've been over communicating with them. We've been showing them that there's progress made, or any attempts to fix the issue that they have become friends, because you are showing that you are committed, you're trying to figure out what the issue is, and you're trying to solve it to get them to the place that they want to be. And I think that drives the commitment. So it can go from a really crap review to a really glowing review once you're done fixing the problem.
Yeah.
So it's focused on the customer experience, and authenticity would probably drive. But I think you got to also think about it in a campaign perspective, not a one and done kind of let's improve our number of reviews we have on a certain platform. But we've definitely done that too. We've definitely had campaigns where we said we want more reviews on AppExchange, so let's encourage all our customers to do it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just, I think the way you frame it is really, really important.
It depends on how important it is to your business as well. Like we talked to Xiaofei Zhang from Active Campaign a while back as well, and they did like this big alliance with Salesforce. And what they did, which I thought was quite funny, is they actually like replaced a lot of their internal like websites around Salesforce with the Salesforce AppExchange website. So their customers would all be sent to the AppExchange listing. And so it looked like they had huge amounts of traffic because they just used any opportunity they could to just force people in there and try to get them to review, etc. And so they actually became like the number one for marketing automation.
That's brilliant. I mean, you also get highlighted as a top recommended app on many marketplaces based on your visits and downloads. So if that's your tactic, I applaud you. That's incredible.
But it only works, I guess, with one. Like you shouldn't your website shouldn't just be like a web where you just send out traffic to partners. You probably want to make sure that you're deliberate about it.
100%.
I want to make sure we get to all 5 steps. And so I wanted to cover the next one as well, which is to make it extremely easy to work with you. And we talked about that a little bit, like, doing the work for your partner and actually like, giving them a list and like giving them buzzwords, etc. What other ways have you found to make it easy to work, to make it easy for partners to work with you?
I think the number one mistake I've seen brilliant presentations, buzzwords, customer stories, but the piece that I've seen be missed a lot is, how do I contact you? Or who do I contact when I identify an opportunity? That's a must-have in any presentation, in any outreach, is if your customer is interested in this buzzword, let's say project management tool, and your customer loves the fact that Motorola loves you, who do I then introduce my customer to learn more and to transact through you? And that's really important because you need to have that established trust or champion within the partner organization from both sides so that that pipeline generation can be done. So I think it's either you make your alliance manager the top person that people can contact, or you have a specific email dedicated to this partnership. So I'd say we have an email at Monday that's partners@monday.com. I've had different emails in the past that's specifically for Google or specifically for AWS. It would literally be google@workspot.com or AWS@monday.com. So it's very, very easy for them to reach out to you. And I think the second biggest thing is your SLA on response. The reason why we drove 50 to 80% in revenue was because we were the easiest to work with. We were extremely responsive, and we would get the reps information they needed very, very quickly. That way, if you think about it, what really happens? A partner is on a call with their customer. The customer inquires about a solution. The rep wants to follow up, send an email with their recommendations, and get it off their plate. So if they don't have information and they're reaching out to you, they will probably want to send that email follow-up within the same day. So my SLA, which is really insane, but 10 to 15 minutes. I don't care where you are. I know it's very tough.
10 to 15 minutes
Yes.
response time?
Yes. From
Wow.
myself and from my previous teams, where we are implementing that at Monday, but I think at WorkSpot, Apptus, that was always our priority because you always have competition. And if they respond faster, more likely than not, the partner rep is going to copy paste that information and send it over to their customer because they will need that answer sooner than later.
Yeah.
So I know it's controversial and I know it's very, very hard to achieve, but if you can do this, SLA within 10 minutes and I would recommend have pre-planted email templates, either in your
Yeah.
Notes app or in your Gmail, where you could just copy paste and send it over. I think that's super important.
Yeah.
So make it extremely simple to work with. We talked about buzzwords, we talked about customer stories, we talked about ways to engage with you, and have a pre-planted email template you can send over that will get you the introduction to the customer.
Yeah. I agree with Antonio. Wow. I want to dig in a little bit more on that 15 minutes. I guess, is that an external facing SLA? Like, did you communicate with partners like, we will respond within 15 minutes?
No, that's more of internal to my
It's
team.
internal. Good.
Yes.
Because I felt like I already started sweating on behalf of your team. But then secondly, like, how did you actually scale that? Because I guess a lot of the organizations you work with are global and they probably have customers around the world, which means that you would need global coverage for that.
And we do have that.
Yeah.
We do have global coverage. We have Monday is a global team. So if your email partners at monday.com, you're hitting someone on some time zone. It was very hard to achieve when you were headquartered in San Francisco and you have someone from France emailing you with an opportunity.
Yeah.
But I think, unfortunately, fortunately, and my husband would say that this is not the best habit I have, but I check my email frequently. And I don't recommend it, but I think have a contingency plan as a partner leader. Make sure you have coverage in each territory. As you said, time zones are really important. But that SLA is really key. Be the easiest partner to work with. Otherwise, they're going to go to your competition. Or you're not going to be recommended. So all that hard work you've done on educating, aligning, account planning will mean nothing if you don't get the person that's looking for a way to introduce you to their customer.
Yeah, that's a fascinating story. Like I really enjoy that. It's interesting because I feel like if you ask any team, they would be like, yeah, we want to also be respond within 15 minutes, but actually doing it and like walking the walk is going to be a lot harder than just, virtue signaling and saying like we are partner centric.
So
but it's a great way of showing it.
Let's do a controversial challenge to all of our attendees. If you were to take one thing away from today's session is, can you implement a 15-minute SLA to engage with your partners if they need something from you to introduce you to their customer? I think it's tough, but we've done it. We've done it, and I think we have a question.
Yeah, we have a question from Antonio about exactly that. Like, how does everything operate in the background to ensure that the team becomes aware of this and meets the SLAs?
I think it's one, communicating to your team. You say you're focused on driving revenue from partners. Driving revenue from partners means that being extremely responsive and concise and getting the information they need is very important. And this is why the 15-minute SLA is key, to be top of mind and be ahead of your competition. It always resonates. I've never seen it fail. And honestly, what I've seen is the buzzwords work. Once the buzzwords are easy to identify, then you get reps that worked with you once repeat and even ask the question, because once they already sold with you, they're more comfortable to pitch that specific solution. So that builds your champions. And if they require more information, then it will be an introduction to a customer. So that's a direct path to revenue, which we have to be very conscious about. Otherwise, any ABM planning, any other planning, any QBRs mean nothing. Your goal is to revenue.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And you build a reputation for excellence. Like you build a reputation for being the best partner to work with, the best solution to market. Like the partner will be happy to recommend you because they know that your team is ace. And so they want to make sure that their customers are happy. So I like the knock-on effects that Owl has, like just by signaling that you're willing to commit to that. It also leads nicely to like the last step, which is over communicate and build champions, which I guess you just described one great way of doing that, which is by being the simplest partner to work with. What other ways have you found that help you like build champions, but also identify them, like find the right people in the partner org?
So I think step one is if anyone from a partner organization emails you and asks you for more information to send to their customer, that is a potential champion for you. And what I've seen is reps that align themselves to 3 to 5 people that they work with from a partner organization, and they continue to drive business together, they hit their number. Those are the top reps in the company. I've seen it over and over and over and over again. One, because they create that trust, they create the relationship, they create the way to work together. Their accounts change every year, or they're trying to grow the same account to a bigger spender. But let's get tactical. So you get an email from a partner that says, hey, I'm looking to introduce you to our customer. Here's what I need. You send that over, and that introduction is made. You then take on and start talking to the customer. Every rep is different. Let's be real. Every rep will either want to be involved or they don't want to be involved at all. So over communicating here is very key. So if the rep joins the customer call, great. You can send a summary after the customer call with the rep CC that made the introduction so that they see that you're following up, you're capturing all the action items, and you're taking the deal forward. And every single communication, I encourage you to CC or BCC the initial person that introduced you to the deal. That creates trust, that creates credibility, that builds ongoing support that you might need from that rep at any point. Let's say they're not involved, but you need to understand who the procurement person is before you transact, or the procurement process. They've already dealt with that because that's an existing customer. So you created that trust, you've managed their customer expectations, you've sent follow-ups. Make sure that the partner person is included. That way you're starting to build your champions.
Yeah, I like it because normally your assumption would be you want to spare their inbox, so you just move them to BCC. But actually, it's much better to keep them in CC and make sure they see that you're responding every 15 minutes as like another kind of like little knock-on effect of, being so responsive.
Exactly. I can't hold the reps accountable to 15 minutes. I can only hold my team accountable to 15 minutes. But I guess if we say challenge number 2, make sure your sales team knows about your SLA, and let's see if we can meet it.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that like if you're doing such a good job and you're seeing results, it will like trickle down to the rest of the organization, that they all feel like, oh, we should actually hold ourselves to standards as well. We also want to be world class. Like you can't let the partnerships team eat our cake.
Absolutely.
Awesome. We are at time, and I know you're busy, Olga, and I know everybody in the audience is busy. If you had one like piece of advice you would want to pass along, just as like one takeaway from today, what would it be for the audience?
I think there's 5 steps, right? So I would encourage you to review the 5 steps. I think about approaching partnerships from a creative angle. Always think about it from a people angle. How would you want to engage as a person with a different organization? I think a big part of collaboration from culture and merging the 2 cultures together. And 2, become a part of the network, become a part of the networking ecosystem. I recommend joining Partnership Leadership's network. It's an amazing way to learn, amazing way to get into our world. And I've seen people go from office managers, from marketing, from sales, and joining partner ecosystem. We have a million different roles we do, and it's extremely exciting if you like variety in your job. So continue to ask questions and learn. And we're here to share our experience.
Yeah, 100%. We're here. If you have any questions and you're watching the recording, just drop it in the comments. 15 minutes SLA on responses. Maybe not in the comments, but per email. We'll see. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, Olga. And thank you so much, Lincoln and Antonio, for joining us live. And we will be back with the partnerships in 2 weeks, where we'll interview Kelsey Aina, who runs startup programs at HubSpot, about VC partnerships, which I'm also pretty excited about. So thanks everybody for joining us today, and see you in 2 weeks.
Heave ho, gather round all your landlubbers, come aboard, we're setting sail on the partnership with Franz as our Lord. With each episode, a tale of partnership and praise from leaders at their table box. And active campaign, they shall amaze. Sailing on the partnership, through the podcast ways we go. Listening to the tales of those who lead with knowledge they shall bestow. From G2 to their script, Sendoso and Slido, they join us on this trip. Come along, me hearties, as we navigate the partnership.